What's up? This is Vanessa Satten, Editor-in-Chief of the Take It to Trial podcast. And this one, we're talking about Lil Durk. The trial started last week, officially with jury selection. It'll be going on the same time as the Keefe D trial. So kind of double duty over here. There's going to be a lot of legal hip hop conversations across the board coming from everywhere. But we're going to do our best to break down what's going on in this trial, which really is starting its first full week today. So to break down a little bit, again, break down a little bit of what's going on in the trial and what we're going to be seeing over the next few weeks, Peter's going to fill us in on the story.
Right. So really, this story really begins back in November 2020. King Von, there had been some tension between the NBA, Young Boy Never Broke Again, and the NBA Never Broke Again camp and OTF for some reasons that, there's a lot of stuff floating around on the internet, but basically they had a problem. Both King Von and Quando Rondo are in Georgia outside of like a nightclub or some night spot. This is November 2020. King Von confronts and assaults Quando Rondo as soon as he sees him. And then, amid the chaos of that sudden attack, Quando Rondo's friend, another NBA affiliate, shoots King Von and King Von dies. And the months that go on afterwards, people online are saying, they're kind of making light of this situation. They're saying, why didn't you slide for Von? Why aren't you getting revenge for King Von? Et cetera, et cetera. A bunch of stupid internet stuff for people not involved. And then a couple of years later, or a little under a couple of years later, about 6 years ago, in August 2022, while Quando Rondo was in LA, he is attacked. Him and his friends, him and his cousin, are shot at by multiple people while they're in LA. His cousin, Lil Pab, gets shot and killed in the chaos of the shooting. And a couple of years later, Lil Durk is indicted on, this is fall 2024, he's indicted on murder for hire charges. He's not charged with the actual shooting, but prosecutors are charging him with funding the shooting, planning the shooting, and making sure that it got done. They're accusing him of finding the people to shoot at Quando Rondo's people in retaliation for King Von. They're accusing Durk of paying for it. They're accusing of him of paying for the flights and helping arrange in the hotels and helping arrange the whole thing. And one of the pieces of evidence they have is a text saying something like, make sure don't book any of the flights underneath the names of people related to me.
Don't book no flights, or there are no names involved with me.
Yeah, exactly. And he's been behind bars for almost 2 years now, and now the trial is starting. Last week they started jury selection, and they started and completed jury selection, and opening statements are expected to begin today. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty much the size of it. This is a saga that goes back 6 years, and Durk's been behind bars for two years now almost. There are several witnesses, some allegedly from his camp. And yeah, that's pretty much like where we're at right now. We're going to go into opening statements apparently today. And there seems to be a lot of evidence, guys. And it doesn't look great for Durk, but at the same time, as we've seen with the Keefe D trial and other trials in the past, things aren't always what they seem. And it's never easy to prove somebody guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. So
let's go over a little bit what the government says is like the extensive circumstantial trail they have. They have that an OTF associate allegedly arranged one-way flights for 5 alleged participants from Chicago to California the day before the shooting. We have around those times, those flights were purchased. Durk allegedly texted an associate, which is pretty damning when you have a technical trail, which is a technology trail, which is different than the Keefe D case, right? 30 years ago, you don't have these kind of text messages, even these credit card receipts. But Durk allegedly texted an associate, don't book no flights and their names involved with me. Durk himself flew privately to California that day with an alleged conspirator, Kavan Vonnie Grant. Grant allegedly purchased ski masks that they have receipts for and proof of, which I don't know. That's what I'm reading. Grant allegedly paid for the alleged shooter's hotel using a credit card in Durk's name. Prosecutor says OTF related money financed the operation, and the men allegedly spent hours tracking Quando's movements before the actual shooting. So that's pretty much the breakdown that we know now of the prosecutor's case against Durk and the other guys involved, which I don't know if that's damning or not, but seems not very good. Now, I think we've heard, which is interesting with this Durk case, unlike Keefe D, and of course, 30 years apart, not the same popularity, Durk being a rapper, it really is the comparison mostly is the fact that the trials are happening at the same time. But is one, there's a lot of people that are supporting Durk. There's free Durk movements. There's rappers online, free Durk. Let's pray for him. We saw last week people in Africa. I don't remember what country.
Yeah, in Ghana. It's Ghana. That's the link I sent you. They had a
Ghana
whole march, like a whole march outside. Like, it's
right
crazy.
for supporting OTF. We've seen just a lot of rappers in general speak up on his behalf over the last year since he's been locked up, supporting him. So it's very interesting to see the support that Durk is getting from the hip hop community, the public, everyone who wants to see, not everyone, but tons of people from different areas who want to see him freed. And then what we have here that's different than the Keefe D trial is again the trail of the technology is going to leave behind other tech messages that we haven't seen yet. What are the credit card charges specifically? What is the evidence that we don't know or we're going to see over the next few weeks because we don't know everything right now. So all of that's kind of interesting. The other thing is that Durk has a known a legal team, right? Is it Drew Fielding is supporting him?
Is it finally?
Drew Fielding. Vish Feinling is supporting him, that defense attorney. So who's been very successful historically covering different rappers' trials or getting them off. Dirk's, a lot of people, if you listen to his defense, that this case doesn't have legs to stand on, that he's going to be a free man. So what's going to happen? We're going to see. I mean, Durk is facing a pretty long sentence. We're talking about life in prison. The death penalty has been taken off the table, but he is facing life in prison. Just to go over that, if he's convicted of murder for hire, life is on the table. Convicted of stalking Little Pab, he also has a long sentence ahead. If he's convicted of firearm machine gun count resulting in death, he's potentially got a life level exposure in jail. If he's acquitted on the death resulting counts but convicted of conspiracy and stalking Quando, he could receive a term of years in jail rather than life or prison. Remember, this is a federal trial. And again, if he's acquitted on all LA counts, he could eventually walk on the case, but prosecutors can still pursue the severed racketeering murder allegations in another trial, which they plan to do after this. So heavy is the crown, I guess,
Well, just to add to that, so another piece of evidence that they're trying to use is the 6ix9ine interview that's been circulating.
Yeah.
So they're pretty much trying to say that Lil Durk felt under pressure because 6ix9ine was taunting him on the internet from that academic.
Well, a lot of people were saying slide for Vaughn, right?
Correct, but they were trying to say that 6ix9ine's presence, right? That 6ix9ine was taunting him. We know he's known for being a troll. He has a huge internet presence.
So they're trying to use that came out, yeah,
which I think is crazy. I don't think Durk cares enough about what 6ix9ine has to say about him or the situation, quite frankly. So I think them trying to use that as evidence is bogus. I think the more damning evidence against Lil Durk will be who is testifying from OTF, because there are rumors that OTF Vonnie is going to testify. So if he's the one that bought the ski mask, like, his testimony could be damaging. As far as everything else, I mean, him saying that, don't book flights under my name. I mean, we don't really know what that has to do with, you know what I mean? It's circumstantial, but I think that piece of evidence, as far as who from OTF is going to be testifying, that will be the most damning evidence.
What's the deal that they take? What's the reason that they testified? Correct. All of that. What were they?
And OTF Jammy is another one. So far, 2 key witnesses from OTF, allegedly.
And then also you have, the approval of his lyrics being able to be used in court. So you've got, really, it's, they're focused on the song "Pissed Me Off," that the judge has ruled that prosecutors can use the song lyrics and music video at Dirk's murder for hire trial.
Right.
So that's another. We've seen this over the years. We've seen people protest very much over rappers being able to have their songs be used against them in court, and that's a controversial issue in itself. Is it art or is it confession? Is it their fault for saying something in the lyrics and they should have been smarter than that? Or should
Right.
something like that not be used against them in court? Because in a lot of other genres of music, you don't see that happen, where people's art form is used against them. But also, you might not see as many legal issues, or murder for hire cases, where it comes into play. So the lyrics being used against him isn't a slam dunk for evidence or home run,
Right.
but it is an extension of what we've seen go on with some of these rapper related murder trials in the past few years.
Yeah, I just want to bring it back really quickly to what Peter said of how all this happened. I think it's even more unfortunate because the beef originally started with Dirk and NBA YoungBoy. No, I'm lying. Vaughn and NBA YoungBoy. So the beef originally started with Vaughn and NBA YoungBoy, and we do know that it also started because it had to do with women, right? Unfortunately, it's unfortunate because it did start with involving women, right? Like, if you guys remember
Allegedly,
correctly,
yeah. I mean, we don't know 100% what everything is, but
allegedly,
that's what they
right? Because
believe. That's what the public believes. Yeah.
allegedly Vaughn had NBA YoungBoy's girl in the studio, and then all of a sudden, at that time, Vaughn was dating Asian Doll, and then NBA YoungBoy had Asian Doll in the studio. So it's kind of like it started with them two, and then Quando Rondo jumped in to pretty much defend NBA YoungBoy, and then all of a sudden, the beef moved from
Well,
NBA
Quando
YoungBoy.
being Young Boy's artist. Yeah.
Correct, because he that was his artist. Correct. So I think it's unfortunate because it's a case of people defending their crews, and now look, Quando Rondo was on the rise too at that time. His YouTube numbers were skyrocketing. Like, remember, he used to come to the Double XL office. Like, he was on his way up, and so was Vaughn. They were both really promising artists. So it's just a shame that it led to this. You
But
know.
but also what's interesting in that is that Quando didn't kill Vaughn. If
Correct.
you technically, little
Low
Tim
tip.
pulled the trigger and he got off on that in self defense. So there is interesting. Now, with that, you did have Quando say some kind of crazy lyrics and say some crazy stuff just in general after Vaughn died. But in this situation, it's interesting just overall that it was about going after Quando and not going after Tim, who actually pulled the trigger. If this is the case, if what we're talking about is a get back in any which way, I just find it kind of interesting that Quando was the target, not the shooter. And does that mean that what Quando did? Because if you watch that video, which I've watched a billion times, we worked on Hip Hop Homicides TV show for it, and um, Quando, to the story that I've heard over and over ago from many people, even down with Vaughn, is that Quando was waiting that night at Vaughn's party for him to show up. He was sitting in the front of the car, sleeping, napping. So his version of events, he wasn't waiting to attack Vaughn when he got there. He seems like he was on there on some "I'm going to celebrate your birthday with you" shit. He got out of the car to dap him up, and then it turned into an incident after that. So you didn't have something where Quando was trying to go after, from what I've seen, from what I've heard, from the discussions I've had, where Quando was going after Vaughn that night, where
Right.
it turned into what it turned into, the hate that it turned into. Sure, we've got the background stories and all of that. Technically, if you're going back into what was most heard and much reported, is that Quando that night was waiting to party with him and waiting to hang out with him. And then it turned into that incident. And then it turned into Tim shooting and getting off in self defense. And then somehow they decided to go after Quando after that, which is interesting.
No, it's pretty interesting how bad all of that turned. I saw Quando in interviews afterwards say that there wasn't he didn't even think that the beef was that serious, in his own mind. Now, mind you, these street conflicts, a lot what I've known from, as we all know from covering it over the years. There are always layers to it that people don't see, and a lot of times you'll see somebody on a camera, they'll say it ain't no rap beef, but then all of a sudden, like, one of their friends gets murdered, you know what I mean, or like one of their enemies gets murdered, and they'll even say, like, YNW Melly allegedly had his friends killed, and then he had like he'd be in concert saying, "Oh, rest in peace, my friends that got killed in the
Well,
drive
that's a whole
by.
other
Oh no,
diabolical, crazy
it's a
story.
whole nother
Yeah.
bucket. But what I'm saying is, there's always these street codes, and the way they handle things is so it can be so clandestine, and it can be so like secretive, and so like there's just elements. So I don't know if Quando Rondo truly thought there was no beef, even with the story you told. I To me, that's always been hard to believe, just knowing, especially if he knows the type of people King Von and Lil Durk are. Like, these aren't forgive and forget people. These
Yeah,
are
but at
people.
that time we didn't know that, right?
I mean,
Like
I
Dirk
get it.
had been out for quite some time, and Vaughn was still fairly new, right? To us, right? Like, so we didn't really
Well,
know.
Vaughn's
Like, we
history
knew, but we
preceded
didn't
him a
know.
bit. Vaughn's history preceded
No,
him. I
of
mean,
course he had a
we
murder
knew
case.
he had
Like,
a
I
crazy
get that,
history
but
already.
also
Yeah.
But Quando was also he's a crip. He was a crip, right? So in essence, he's also from the street too. So it's like, yeah, you could know that someone is capable of it, right? Because they have an open case. But also, if you come from that element, it's normalized. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like you could see it as not that serious, right? Because it was over girls. It wasn't over like at that point in time, nobody was going at each other with guns and in a violent manner. It was really just tit for tat on the internet. It was really on Twitter. You know what I mean? So I can see how Quando may not have thought the beef was going to lead to that.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. I mean, maybe he didn't. I want to say, like months before this happened, and we were covering it at the time. But I mean, in 2019, Lil Durk and Vaughn were accused of shooting somebody in the stomach at the Varsity in Atlanta and robbing him. And Dirk got off of that after King Von died. But like these are, I will say, like even if Quando maybe he vaguely knew, like he knew, but it's Dirk and Vaughn are not, there's some very, even among street people, they've got reputations that are pretty bad, for being violent and being petty and being very extreme, which
But
is
I think
why,
there's
you know,
the one thing to point out, sorry, Peter, is, and I think of this all the time, is we're not privy to everything that goes on. We don't know
Right.
every text message. We don't know every DM. We don't get every lyric. We don't know every reference. The public doesn't. The YouTubers, the
Right.
interneters, the streamers, the bloggers, the whoever people out there, the crime fans, the couch detectives. We all don't know really all the details of what shots were sent back and forth, what messages were sent between people that weren't made public. We only know the layers that are public, right? So I think it's very hard for anybody, any of us, anybody, anywhere to really have a definitive grasp of what happened without knowing all the information and being
Right.
privy to the inside conversations. And that goes with any rap beef. I mean, that can go with Kendrick and Drake, which is not violent, but there's an animosity between them. What happened that we don't know about that made, Kendrick disliked Drake to such a degree that we haven't found out about, and not to
Right.
take it over there, except I think there's a big part of it is that we only know what's been made public. And in any situation, like, listen, you break up with someone, you have a problem with someone, whatever it is. Bianca and I tell Bianca a story. If I don't tell her everything, she's only going to know certain parts of it,
Right.
right? So it really is the what don't we know part that we might hear about, or what we might never hear about, that took it to the place that it was.
it's exactly, yeah, no, 100%. And I always assume that's the case in these street shootings, which, and I'll dive a little bit into, not to jump around cases too much, but I mean, I'll dive into the Dolph and people who are allegedly killed, who are accused of allegedly being involved with his killing. I have no idea how a rejected
They're not allegedly, they went to trial.
yeah, no, yeah, exactly, those,
I
but I
mean,
mean, like,
straight dropped in jail. Govan Hernandez, right? He got
yeah,
off, and he was
yeah,
a. They said those guys went to trial. There is a theory and a whole idea and story of what happened there, and you do have somebody in jail for that. You have someone who got
that's
off. Interestingly enough, that people didn't seem to think was going to. And I know you have a theory that ties into our thoughts on Govan Hernandez case.
Yeah, no, like to get back to that, like, oh well, a little before, but yeah, like there's the rumor that the whole beef between Dolph and Yo Gotti got started because Dolph like rejected his record deal, and it's hard for me to believe that. Which is to say, it's hard for me to believe that that simple thing led to Dolph getting killed. It feels kind of trivial in a cosmic sense. So
Well, let's not forget the video "Play with Your Bitch."
well, no,
Like,
yeah,
it
but
wasn't just that. It
no,
was a lot. It
oh
was like
no,
a lot of back and forth.
oh no,
Also,
but I'm saying like, but before that though, like even, but like Dolph, like there was a lot of tension and animosity between them before, which is going to Vanessa and my point too. Like there's always a lot we don't, yeah, there's a lot we don't see, and it's going to be interesting to see how it all unfolds during the trial. Super side note, these rappers, as much as I love freedom of speech and I love all of, I love gangster rap and street rap. If these guys are going to be brazen enough to self snitch on their own songs, I mean, I don't really have that much of a problem with like the lawyers using it. It's hard for me to
No,
say,
come on,
no,
Peter. No. That is still freedom of expression. Like,
it's
come
freedom
on,
of
man.
expression, but if you're gonna be like,
Come on.
listen, we got the drop on the op. We found him on November 20th, 2020, and he decided to, and he just, and we decided.
Now it's not it's not the
You know,
smartest thing, Peter. You're right. It's not the smartest thing to do. Like, I
you know,
definitely don't want to talk about crimes and sell it to the masses, right? Like, but I
yeah,
think it's still really unfair.
it's.
It's really, but then again, didn't they do that with that David singer when it came to? Did they use his lyrics?
I don't think so.
They didn't. Right? Well, that would bring up another point, right? It's like they do it to rappers, but they don't do it to David. Like, you found a girl in his trunk, for Christ's sake. Like,
But did he sing about a dead girl in his trunk?
I
Yeah,
believe
I
he
mean, you can't
did.
use it against him if he didn't do it.
I
Like
believe he did, though, didn't he?
I don't think so.
I don't.
Because
I don't
Be
know if
right
I've
back.
ever heard that guy's music.
that's such a grotesque thing that you can't like romanticize it. You know what I mean? You can't. But with the thing with street rap in particular, so much is put on.
Oh, please wait. Romantic homicide.
I mean, wait, is that the song?
Yeah,
I
they did. They said they did. They were. I mean, he's going to trial, but they were going to use it against him. So it is a similar situation. I just think you have more murder in hip hop that artists go to trial for than any other genre.
Yeah, but that
I
still
mean, not
doesn't
that
give the
other
right.
ones aren't happening, but I think you've got more cases of it because you just simply have more cases of murder and homicide in hip hop than pop
Yeah.
music or country music. Not that it doesn't exist, but
Right. But I still think that's unfair. That like at the
I
end of
mean,
the
you're
day, like,
stupid enough to use it. What do you think's going to happen?
You know,
We
it's
know it's possible, right?
and it's
If we know it's possible, it's not like there's going to be exception. It says, hey, you know what? This is my art. They probably won't use it against me if I say it here. You've seen it before. The history exists.
Lucy.
You've seen Kevin Lyles preaching for Young Thug over and over about it. Your lyrics can be used against you in court. That's it. Maybe you shouldn't say it.
And it's
yeah, but also the Young Thug case that happens after that song was released and after all this stuff went down. The case started around 2023, if I remember
But
correctly.
you're not going to change the fact that the courts have that this is an ability for them to do.
Oh, of
Like
course,
whether you
but
think
Piss
it's
Me
fair or
Off was
not,
already
it is
released
the
2 years earlier.
circumstance.
But
you
Piss Me
know,
Off was already released 2 years earlier. So again, he knew it was possible. But I think Young Thug's case really shined the light on how lyrics can be used in court. Yes, it's been happening for years, but I think at least
But it doesn't
the
matter.
younger generation. You know
But it
what I
doesn't
mean?
matter because here we're a few years later and they're using Dirk's court lyrics
Yes, too
against
late.
him. So shining a light or not, it happens.
you know,
It's the prosecutors use it and they're in favor in this case of them being able to. So it is realistic. I
Mhm.
mean, at this point, if you're an artist and you want to talk about a crime you committed, you should have seen the headlines at this point that shows you that it could be used against you. It's been over
Well,
and
now
over
it's a little
again at this
different.
for
point,
sure. It goes
Now.
back to maybe even like Boosie's the first major one I remember, but yeah, it's been around. Who knows? I think it's fair enough, but I think also it's just an interesting kind of unfortunate thing with it, right? The thing that makes me like street rap so much is that it's so specific and it's so plausible. You know what I mean? I'm listening to this Pooh Shiesty album. I'm like, man, this is
They're
like
rapping about what they live, right? That's what we want.
like I think he all but literally described the Gucci Mane situation allegedly. He all but explicitly said it. It gives there's a vicarious thrill in it, right? That makes the music so compelling. So it's ironic that the thing that makes these people so believable and therefore so profitable and so good and so able to make money and elevate themselves out of the ghetto is their proximity and their willingness to live out the things that kept them in the ghetto and that will eventually land
but
them
there were
back in
other
the ghetto.
artists back in the day who were able to figure out how to tell those tales without being specific.
Yeah,
Right?
no,
So you can tell those tales of authenticity. You can speak what you've been through without necessarily snitching on yourself, right?
For
Well,
sure.
yeah, I mean, now they're super specific. Like, instead of saying, okay, we ran up on the op, it's like, we ran up on the op on Tuesday at 3:23 p.m. on Center Street. Like, yeah, it's a little more specific than it used to be. But also, again, that goes back to saying, like, we frown upon rappers who rap about shit that they don't do. So now we have rappers that rap about shit that they do, and we're still bashing them, like, in a sense, right? Like, but I see both sides, but also you don't have to be specific about your crimes. It's true. Like, you're naming every single thing, like from the location to the person. Like, yeah, it's true. It's I don't know. It's
It's
hard.
no, yeah, no. I mean, yeah, I would say like, yeah, I mean, yeah, maybe be a little vague. I also think that a lot of no,
Right.
no, no, but a lot of these rappers, unfortunately, the barrier for entry was much. It was much more difficult to get through in the '90s, right? You had to have a record label. You had to. Some of these guys, they're gangsters cosplaying as rappers. I remember.
Some.
No, yeah, yeah, yeah. Like no, like a lot of them. It used to be the opposite, but now these
Well, no,
people.
but just to stop, what you see in a headline quite often is you see rapper charged with so and so, rapper charged with so and so in local news, right, in national news, and then we'll say, "Well, I've never heard of this rapper. Like
Yeah,
this kid's
it's
not a rapper that's known. It's a guy with a YouTube page, or YouTube channel who's uploaded some music, but because he's focused on that, where's the barometer? Where's the line where excuse me, if are you deemed a rapper or not, right?
a
So
good
like
point.
we're saying how many headlines if you googled it right now, rapper killed so and so, and then we're saying he's a rapper with 3,000 followers on his 862 Spotify followers, 3,000 on his YouTube subscribers, whatever, but he's being deemed a rapper who's a murderer. But when does it become a murderer that raps? So there's kind of like an interesting line of when you're defined a rapper and that's a profession. Are these guys making money off of their rap and it really constitutes as them being professional artists who then killed someone? I just think there's an interesting line of the first thing is if the guy's got a YouTube channel, even if nobody's going to it or there's 2 songs uploaded, and I look quite often when you see some rapper that is charged with murder, how popular is he? And you see he's uploaded 2 videos and it's got 75 views on it. But because he has a rap song, he's a rapper who's committed murder. So it definitely taints the genre and how many people are affiliated with murder and homicide when they might not even be deemed as an artist that anybody's ever covered or heard of?
A la
Exactly.
Tay-K. Remember, I think Tay-K was probably a prime example of what you just said, right? Like, was he really a rapper, or was
The
he
song blew up. Yeah.
sensationalized? Right? Because
We're
he,
talking about these guys. The song doesn't even blow up, like the
right,
song.
right, right.
Eventually, the song, the race blew up. We're
That's true
talking about a
too.
lot of guys where the songs never even blew up. They're absolutely
It's
nobody's
true.
in the hip hop landscape. They've not met anybody. Maybe they've
Mm-hmm.
never done a
Mm-hmm.
show, but they put some music videos together, and then they're involved in a homicide, and they're deemed a rapper. And now we have another rapper has killed somebody, as far as
Right.
somebody outside looking in, which is always kind of interesting. When if you're going to be in other professions, there has to be a little bit more that qualifies you before you actually are deemed that profession.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I agree. They
Exactly.
call themselves rappers, and they are associated with hip hop. That's true. What are you
And
gonna say, Peter?
but the media calls them rappers, right? Mainstream media is saying
Mhm.
is identifying them as rappers because they have a YouTube page when literally that could be constituted as a hobby.
Right.
Peter, that's Annie Pretzels isn't sponsoring us yet.
Oh
No,
my
I'm just
God,
kidding.
sorry, black
I'm
out.
just kidding. I'm just kidding. But another thing to go back to, I think, is interesting to point out with this case, and Peter, you made the connection to Melly. Is you have a dead kid, you have a dead guy in this, and the conversation is if Dirk didn't do it and Dirk's team didn't do it, right? Dirk's boys didn't do it, then who did? In the YNW Melly case, if Melly didn't do it, then who did? It's very much about free Melly. It's very much about free Dirk, but it's not about find the killer of X, Y, and Z. Of Little Pab and of YNW Sack Chaser and YNW Juvie. And I think that's interesting is it's more the community as a whole, what the community is, the culture as a whole, whoever people seem to be more interested in freeing the person they're a fan of than who really killed the person who lost their life sometimes. And I
Yeah,
think that's kind of an interesting place that we've said the word interesting way too many times in this podcast. But I think that's, a interesting place just to, or a exploratory example of what's going on here right now is why are we more concerned with the person getting off than finding justice for the person who lost their life sometimes,
yeah, and I think it's sort of it goes back to I think what I've noticed more and more over all the years of whatever being a rap journalist is like this people in the streets, they see it as a sort of sovereign nation sort of thing, and just like, and like even communally, there's always, even like among people that aren't actively involved in the streets, right, there's this sort of idea that, hey, mind your business, don't go to police, this is something that they're figuring out, this is some street shit that's happening. And like, I think what really struck me, even with that in mind, YNW Melly was accused of doing some very heinous snake kind of things, but there were so many people unambiguously, so many famous rappers unambiguously supporting Melly. And I don't want to say it for sure, but I would bet, if this were an ethical thing to do, and if I believed in gambling really, I would bet a significant amount of money that there are a lot of rap stars that have rapped and collaborated with Melly that know exactly what happened the day his friends were killed. And if he did do it, like the prosecutors did do it, say it, I think that they're okay with it, and it makes sense to them in some sort of street logic. There are all sorts of like theories going around this, somebody's blackmailing this person, but whatever it is, they believe it makes sense. It's coherent and symmetrical with their street logic. They believe that the person got what they got, that the people he allegedly is alleged of setting up to kill and killing got what they deserve within the framework of street logic. And even if they didn't, even if it was kind of shady, they believe that it should be resolved in the streets. And so a lot of the street rappers, that's just what they believe. Just like, and it is in his own way, just like Tupac, right? Allegedly, Tupac said that like when the cop that was in the ambulance with him said, "Hey, who killed you?" He said, "We'll take care of it." Another guy that got to the scene, they saw him about to die. They asked him to identify his killer. He said, "Fuck you." These people on a spiritual and on a cellular, visceral level do not believe in law enforcement, and they don't believe in the cops. I heard Pooh Shiesty on his new album. He said, "Nah, free that pussy ass nigga because I'm gonna paint him. I'm gonna kill him." That's the thing. Free my enemy because I want to kill him. Whatever happens, they want it adjudicated in the streets. So the street rappers, the real guys that take pride in going to prison and being able to run the jail phones and having the most on their commissary and are used to being in prison, and that just believe in the system of the streets and the logic and the justice of the streets. They're waiting for these things to be adjudicated in the streets. And if it's not, then so be it. They just don't believe in law enforcement. So that's the street rapper side. The fan side, they're just selfish and like, and they look at rap and they look at the streets like it's a video game. They look at it like it's just some fantasy, and that where there aren't victims. I'm a black person. You know what I
Let's
mean?
go on a tour to O Block. Yeah.
Yeah, but no, but we are ignoring the fact that there's a cultural difference, regardless whether you want to acknowledge it or not. A lot of the street rappers come from a certain element, and a lot of their fans also come from the same element. And when you come from that element, you think differently. So if you don't come from that element, you're probably not going to understand. But when you do in that element, I mean certain neighborhoods, marginalized communities. At the end of the day, even if something bad happens to you, you feel weird calling police. You feel weird just telling, even though you probably should alert the authorities. It just doesn't feel right in your moral being. Like, you know what I mean? So I don't think we can ignore that cultural difference between street rappers and their fans, like that come from the same environments, regardless whether it's right or wrong. When you're brought up that way for many years, it's hard to change your mind about how you feel when it comes to cooperating with authorities, whether it's right or wrong.
That's true, and I agree with that. That's what I was talking about when I mentioned the like the way people are raised in the community. Like, I agree with that part, but then there are a lot of white fans, who are absolutely not from the streets and are not about this shit at all. That are in the Instagram comments like "slide for Vaughn," like it's just a like
That's different. Yeah, those
like they're not thinking about Vaughn. If Vaughn, they're not thinking about the family that Vaughn still has to support. They're not,
right.
Lil Durk. All the people that have ever killed for him or been killed by people that were his enemies, like he has to try and support them. He's really
Right.
rich, and that's what happens a lot of these street. But the white kid in Omaha commenting on an Instagram "slide for Vaughn." Meanwhile, King Vaughn or Lil Durk is the only reason why they even know what sliding means in the first place, are trying to prescribe some sort of street judgment on him, whether or not he's keeping it real. and that's where I think things get really fucked up. But I think that, to your point, yeah, like I think that there's some people that are experiencing this vicariously, and they don't care what happens. There's some people from the streets that just, yeah, they don't want to see anything happen with the police. There's other white kids, or just people in general, people in suburbs. They just want another Lil Durk album. They don't. They
Right.
want another album to play Xbox to or pregame to. So I think those things mixed together leads to us not caring that much about um, Quando Rondo's cousin. And it's sad, but it's a mix of street logic and sort of the
Right.
vicarious thrill seeking that is involved with being a rap fan. So
I mean, when you think about it, it's a crazy story, right? Like how all this happened is a crazy story, no pun intended. Um, so it's like it's kind of like you can't help. It's like a really bad accident that you can't turn away from. Like, you know,
Well, to wrap it up, and to because we're going to wrap it up. Um, this is not televised, right? So Keefe D is televised, but this isn't. So that makes it a little bit different. And I think with the Young Thug case, with all of that, it's very interesting to see. It's interesting. It's very interesting to see the trial happen and to see the actual lawyers defend, prosecute, the witnesses, everything we're seeing with the Tupac case. We didn't see that during the Diddy case, but we heard a lot of it reported from people in the courtroom. So we're going to start seeing how that leaks out, and the information. We've already seen that a bit with some of the jurors being excused and comments on jurors and all of that last week. So the reporting from inside the trial with Dirk, the coverage there, and what we hear about it, how many reporters are allowed in, what they're allowed. We have not seen Dirk in a mugshot. We have not seen him recently. We have not. Everything has been AI, to my knowledge, that we really don't know even what he looks like right now. Will we see sketches of him? Will we see the family go in and out? The actual turnout for a court? Will we see Little Pab's family there? What's going to happen over the next few days? We do know that there are prosecution of 35 witnesses. They're going to do opening statements and then start talking to people, probably chronologically, from what we've read. But this is a big trial. This is a big artist on trial for murder. This is not, some of the other stuff that we've seen in recent past. This is a huge artist that had a very large fan base with a very large support system from a lot of other rappers who loved him, with big records, specifically collabo records, with big names, that is now maybe going away forever or not, and then also facing another trial after this one. So we'll be covering it during the duration of the trial, but like we seem to be doing right now, guilty or innocent, where do you guys going? Just off of what you know right now.
this is going to be a hard one, but in my heart of hearts, well, based on the legal team, I'm going to say innocent.
what I'm gonna say is this, and I touched on this slightly. I think an interesting parallel case is Hernandez Govan, or Govan or Govan. He's somebody that was tried in a case for allegedly setting up Young Dolph for murder. It's a very similar kind of case where they both have people that said that so and so, aka Govan and Dirk, that they paid this amount of money, and or they supplied the supplies and the information, and they helped play a role in selecting the shooters and pretty much everything planning the murder. But in the case of Govan, he got off. He was acquitted in that case because even though there was the literal shooter saying what happened and where and why, and how he got the money and who did it, they weren't able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Govan definitely set it up and definitely did it. They were able to brush it off. It's like, oh, well, that's hearsay. This is what this person said. Yeah, but where's the physical proof? Where is this and that? And I think that there's a lane. I think that's probably what Dirk's defense is kind of counting on. I think the difference will come down to the amount of witnesses Dirk had against Dirk and how much more specific information they're able to give. Because unlike with Govan, there's a clear cut motive and well documented motive, and some of the time and the arrangements, him taking a private flight out to California, that doesn't make it look good. But with that said, with Govan, there wasn't as obvious a motive. It's just he just connected them for the shooting allegedly. But with that said, with that existing, I thought this was a 70% Dirk being guilty. I'm gonna say this is. I think this is going to actually be 50-50, surprisingly, even though they say
Mm.
the feds only take you to trial when they think they've got you. We've
Well, it's not going
seen.
to be 50-50. You're 50-50.
Yeah, 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 yeah. You know what?
He's going to be guilty or not.
Guilty or innocent, Peter? Let's go.
No, 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 no. Look.
What is it?
I'm 55-45 on it, honestly.
You gotta choose one. No, you gotta choose one. You
No,
gotta
no,
choose
right,
one. No,
right.
no. I know what you're doing here. I know you too long.
No, matter of fact,
Guilty or innocent? Let's go.
I think he's gonna be found innocent.
I think he might be found guilty. I don't know. I mean, if you watch the lawyers and you hear what the lawyers have to say, even the lawyers who make defense attorneys who make Instagram videos speaking on it, they all feel very in favor of it. But the evidence, on the other hand, the digital trail to me is concerning as far as, you've got the timing seems pretty damning as far as the statements, the Amex statements, or sorry, is it an Amex? I think it was on his Amex, the OTF credit card bills, the text messages. Maybe you have two people flipping on him. So if you're going off of what the prosecution seems to have, it feels like it doesn't look like a good case for Dirk. If you're going off what the defense is saying, well, they think there's no case here really at all and he's going to get off, or, they feel very positive about it, but shouldn't they feel that way as the defense? So today, without seeing much, I'm leaning towards guilty based off of what I've read through the evidence to be. Let's see where it is after the opening statements and what the defense can really poke a hole in, but I'm not sure if it looks so good right now for him.
I think the only way he'll be found guilty is if one of the OTF members not only does their story line up, but I feel like they would have to have a wire or some type of like. Do you think any of them were wired? That's another question, right? Like, do you think any of them were wired? Were they cooperating? Like, because for them to find out.
What if they didn't wear a wire, but they just told the side of the story where they admitted everything and they took a deal?
I don't think that's enough, because at the end of the day, I can say someone told me to do something and that's why I did it. That doesn't make it true unless I have evidence that that person told me to do it.
And
if the evidence lines up with the digital trail, I mean, I think the digital trails are hard. We all say over and over again, your cell phone is following you on everything. Your cell phone is the snitch. Your cell phone is the snitch.
They did say they had the iCloud. Yeah, they did. They did say, text message on the iCloud.
What is that going to be? But anyway, we've been going on for a minute. Let's wrap it up now. Okay. And we will be back with the next version of Keefy D very soon. And then the update on this one. So you'll keep getting recaps from us as we chug along. Thank you for checking into the Take It to Trial podcast. I'm Vanessa with Peter Barry and Bianca Torres. Sorry, Peter A. Barry and Bianca Torres. And we'll see you next time.